truth! You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back, guys. Chuck Nasty on Fantasy Football here. Today is Friday, September 6th, and this video is going to be uploaded on the morning of Saturday, September 7th with Stardom Situm for Week 1 of the NFL. Going into the first matchup, we're going to talk about the spread for the team, the over and under, and any projections that I have, as well as the primary skill position players and whether or not you should start them or sit them that week. We'll start off with the Redskins and the Eagles. So the spread for the game is minus 9.5 favored for the Philadelphia Eagles, and the total over under is 46. If I was a betting man, my money's on the Eagles for sure. The spread's a little big to cover, but the Eagles are at home, and it's kind of interesting because the Redskins just have a bottom 5 pass game. The Eagles have had a bottom 5 pass defense. I'm not sure if it's going to be a low-scoring game like they're projecting, under 46, but my money's on the Eagles there. So you look at skill position players for the Washington Redskins, and the overall consensus for all of the players on the Washington Redskins is sit them. I don't like the matchup. I don't like the offense this year. If you have Case Keenum on your roster this year, you're in trouble. If you have Adrian Peterson, he's not starting the game as the starting running back. If you have Darius Geis, sure, he led the SEC in rushing yards with 1,387 last year at LSU, in his last year at LSU, but until he proves that he can play in the NFL after having 5 knee surgeries, I'm not starting him. And then you have Chris Thompson, Paul Richardson, Terry McLaurin, and Jordan Reed. Of those guys, the only one that I even remotely like is Chris Thompson, because the game script is going to be in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles the entire game. There's no way that the Skins are going to be playing from in front, and typically when a team's behind, they use more pass plays. They're going to do some run-pass option stuff where Chris Thompson could get some decent points, but my recommendation is to sit that entire offense. The game's going to be painful to watch. If I had to bet on it, I'd pick the Eagles, but the spread's pretty big, so I'm probably going to pass on it. Moving on to the Eagles. If you have Carson Wentz, fire him up. There is absolutely zero chance that he doesn't have a good game against a bottom team this year. I would be more concerned about some of the running backs that they have in Philly. You have Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders. Now, I don't really know how the backfield's going to shake out yet. There's a couple of different mouths to feed with, I'm guessing, Miles Sanders being the primary, but they're going to use a committee. And I really want to wait 1 week to see how the backfield shakes out in a regular NFL season game before I fire out Miles Sanders. So I'm passing on both of these guys. Miles Sanders, sit him. Jordan Howard, I'm sitting him. When I get a better idea of how the backfield shakes out and who's going to get the primary roles, that's when I'll decide I'm going to play one of these guys. The only 2 guys that I feel safe about playing in this game, week 1, is Zach Ertz, who had 116 receptions last year. Basically, he was the 5th tight end to set that record. And then you have Alshon Jeffrey, where there was only a single game last year in 2018 that he played less than 80% of offensive snaps. Those are the 2 guys that I'm firing up. Alshon Jeffrey, start him. Zach Ertz, start him. Everybody else, get on the bench. So we'll move on to the next matchup here. Bills-Jets. The spread is -3, and the total points is 40. So Vegas is saying that they believe it's going to be a low-scoring affair. I can understand why they would say that, and this is kind of one of those games that I'm not touching. I don't want to bet on either side of this. I'm interested to see how the Buffalo Bills backfield shakes out, but it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think I'm with Vegas on that one. So of the skill position players for the Buffalo Bills, you have Josh Allen, who's pretty much the only player that I would be willing to start this week. I'm not super enthused about starting him this week, but he would be a stardom if you absolutely had to. I'm not saying play him over Phillip Rivers. I'm not saying play him over Lamar Jackson or any of these guys. But if you're in a 2 QB league or it's something that has a super flex or anything like that, fire him up. But of the backfield there, you have Devin Singletary, TJ Yeldon, Frank Gore. I'm sitting all those guys. I don't know how this is going to go. TJ Yeldon's primarily going to get pass down work. I don't know who's going to get more carries between Singletary and Frank Gore. I want to see how this one shakes out. So I'm sitting those guys. And then of the receiving core, John Brown, Cole Beasley, Tyler Kroft, sit them. If you're starting anybody in the Bills offense week 1, it better be Josh Allen in a 2 QB or a super flex league. Other than that, you don't really want any part of that this week. We'll see how it looks. Maybe I'll change my mind for next week, but it's not going to be a great offense to be a part of with the number of running backs that they have in that backfield. And they have 2 new receivers that we just don't know how they're going to do in Buffalo yet. Moving on to the New York Jets. This one might be a little bit different. They have Sam Darnold, who is a quality quarterback. This is one of those guys where, 10 to 12 team leagues, he's probably not a starter in a redraft league. A 2 QB in a super flex league, I would definitely consider it. But my money's on Le'Veon Bell. So in 2017, of course, the last year that he played football, he had 6 games of 30-plus touches. No one had more than 3 games of 30-plus touches in 2018. So Le'Veon had double that in 2017. I'm interested to see how they're going to utilize him. I think he's going to get a ton of work here. And they're going to try to control the clock by running the ball. So if I'm firing anybody up in this matchup, it's Le'Veon Bell. But other than that, I don't like Robbie Anderson this week. He goes against Tre'Davious White. He's one of the top corners in the league. Very tough matchup. I'm sitting him. Quincy Enunwa, he hasn't caught more than 4 passes after week 2 of 2018 last year. I'm sitting him. Jamison Crowder, there's been some positive hype about the rapport that he has with Sam Darnold. So I'm going to let this one shake out before I decide that I'm going to start him on a weekly basis. So I'm sitting him this week, but if he has a good week this week, then I will definitely be open to starting Jamison Crowder next week. Moving on to the next matchup, we got Ravens-Dolphins. So the spread is 6.5 for the Dolphins, and this is one of the games that I really like as an against the spread pick. My pick for this game is the Baltimore Ravens. I took them, and I actually got them at -7 when I was in Vegas. I got back yesterday afternoon, and this is one of the picks that I'm taking for my against the spread bets this week. Really like this game, and I just have a feeling that Miami's bottom-ranked run defense is going to get absolutely obliterated by Mark Ingram. So Vegas says that this game is going to be a low-scoring contest. They have the over-under at 37.5, which is crazy. I would be really tempted to take the over, but I've already got a wager on the game. So we'll leave it. But of the starters on the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, fire him up. The Dolphins are going to be bad. I think that most Dolphins fans realize that their team has been tanking and trading away their skill players. Even they traded away a guard most recently with Kenny Stills to the Houston Texans for future draft picks. So it's pretty clear that they're making a move to rebuild, and you want to take advantage of that as much as you can. So Lamar Jackson, fire him up, start him. Mark Ingram. Now, this is a little bit more of an interesting one for me because I've always been a huge Mark Ingram fan. I think that he has always had the potential to be a 3-down back, but being in New Orleans when they had Alvin Kamara, it's really difficult for him to get the majority of the workload when you have somebody that's as good as Alvin there. So this is his time to shine, and Baltimore has run the ball more than anybody else besides the Seahawks in the NFL last year. I'm confident that Mark Ingram's going to get his. I'm starting him tomorrow. Of the receiving core, you have Marquise Brown, Hollywood, Willie Snead, and then you've got Mark Andrews. I'm not a big fan of the wide receivers until Lamar Jackson proves that he can actually accurately throw the ball downfield. I'm not starting any of these guys, but he did have a pretty good connection with Mark Andrews last year. He led the team in receiving yards with 339 yards after Lamar Jackson took over as quarterback last year towards the end of the season. So if you got to start somebody, start Mark Andrews. But other than that, my stardom picks are Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins. If you own any of these players, I'm really, really sorry. They have proven that they are tanking, and it's just not going to be a positive game script for them for most of the games this year. The only person that I would consider playing this year or this week, I'm sorry, is Kenyon Drake. So he only had a single game last year where he had less than a 75% offensive snap share. But he's kind of in a committee right now with Kalen Ballage. So I'm not super confident. The Ravens have an above average defense, and I'm not going to be starting him this week. Of the Dolphins offense, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Kenyon Drake, Kalen Ballage, Albert Wilson, Devontae Parker, and Mike Gesicki, I'm sitting all of them. I don't want any part of this matchup, and I just want to prove to myself that the Dolphins are actually going to be somewhat of a competent offense before deciding that I'm going to start any of their offensive players in week 2. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to be able to prove that to myself, so I'm definitely going to be sitting these guys. We'll move on to the next matchup. Kansas City Chiefs against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. The spread is +4 for the Jags, and the Chiefs are the ones that are on the road, and the over-under is at 52. So the interesting part about this game is that the Chiefs are a high-flying offense, but their defense isn't that good. When they've played the Jaguars last year, they put up over 300 yards against them. You know, it was a good game, but the Jaguars, I have this feeling that line, it seems like a trap line. I bet the Chiefs because I'm pretty confident that they're going to win that game. But the Jaguars had a ton of turnovers last year against the Chiefs when they played them. And we'll see how it shakes out. But of the skill position players for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, fire him up. You better start this guy. It doesn't even matter what his matchup is for the week. He's obviously going to have a good game. He's had a red zone touchdown in 15 of 16 games last year. And there's nobody that you can start with more confidence at the quarterback position than Patrick Mahomes himself. It gets a little bit more muddy after Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce is obviously going to be a start. He's a favorite target of Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to have a good game. He was targeted at least 5 times in every single game last year in 2018. So he's somebody that I'm starting no matter what. I'm starting him every week. He's an every week starter. There's really no reason to stream a tight end over him at any point, but you probably already knew that. So going into the wide receivers, you have Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek Hill had 14 games in 2018 that he had 50 or more receiving yards, which was tied for the second most at the wide receiver position. I'm firing him up with confidence. He's probably going to see a good chunk of Jalen Ramsey, but he's fast, and he's going to get his. Sammy Watkins, I'm sitting him. I'm just not confident. It doesn't seem like whatever NFL team he's on, whether it be the Bills, whether it be the Rams, whether it be the Chiefs, that he just doesn't appear to get it done. In his last 25 games that he has played, he has only had 100 receiving yards or more in 3 of those games. So I'm sitting him, not interested in playing Watkins at all, but am interested in playing Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And then as far as the running backs go, this is a bit of a tough one for me, with LaShawn McCoy just being recently traded over there, or picked up, I should say, from the Bills after he was cut there. I don't know how the backfield is going to shake out. I'm definitely not starting LaShawn McCoy the first week. There's a couple of leagues where I'm forced into starting Damian Williams this week. And, towards the end of the season, he looked really good, but they've added LaShawn McCoy in there with him. They have Darwin Thompson behind him as well, and they also have Darrell Williams with him as well. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in the backfield. I have to start him in a couple of leagues, but my recommendation would be find a better option. So moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of the players that I want to start on this roster, Dede Westbrook and Leonard Fournette. Those are the 2 players that I want to start this year. I think that Dede has a really, really good game, especially in PPR formats, and Leonard Fournette's going to get a ton of work. So those are the 2 guys that I'm firing up in that offense. And I'll try to summarize a little bit more quickly just to make sure that we can continue to move on. Falcons-Vikings, the spread is the Minnesota Vikings -4. The total over-under is 47.5. And both of these teams like to throw. Now, there's a new coordinator in Minnesota, so I'm interested to see how this shakes out. But it's going to be an interesting game. So, Falcons offense that I'm firing up with confidence: Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Austin Hooper. Now, Austin Hooper I'm not thrilled about, but all of those guys are going to get their work. The only guy that I'm really not starting, because I don't know how the backfield is going to be behind Devontae Freeman, is Ito Smith or Brian Hill. But everybody else in this offense is going to be a starter this week. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings. They had 12 games with under 100 rushing yards total in 2018 allowed. So that's pretty crazy. And maybe Devontae Freeman doesn't have that great of a game, but we will definitely see how it shakes out. Of the players that I'm starting on the Minnesota Vikings offense this week: Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Stephon Diggs is pretty banged up this week, so I'm probably not going to start him. And then Adam Thielen. So I'm starting Cook, Cousins, and Thielen. I'm keeping Diggs on the bench. He's performed significantly worse when he's banged up. He just doesn't seem to like he plays through injuries very well. So we're gonna be only starting the three of those guys. Moving on to the Titans-Browns. Spread is minus 5.5. Total over under of 45.5. And this is going to be interesting. This is the first opportunity that we have to see the Browns hype train roll through the station. And I'm interested to see how they're actually going to do, because the Titans, the only good piece about the Titans is that they have a pretty good defense, and they might test the Browns. So we'll pretty much see how it goes. But there's some interesting trends that were part of the Titans last year. So they had 12 games in 2018 that had under 30 passing attempts, which is the most in the league. So definitely don't feel like starting Mariota would be a good idea. And then, their defense had the second best red zone success rate in 2018 as well, which is what I'm talking about when the Browns have some steep competition. So a couple of stats to know: Marcus Mariota had 8 games under 10 fantasy points in 2018. I'm sitting him all day. Not happening. Derrick Henry only had 4 games where he had a 50% offensive snap share or higher. So I'm sitting him as well. Deion Lewis, I'm sitting him. But the only positive that would come out of this is a game script that favors the Cleveland Browns, which would give Deion Lewis a chance to get some PPR points out of the backfield. So he's probably the only guy that I would consider starting in this offense. But for the most part, I'm not confident in any of the Titans' offense. So I'm not starting Corey Davis. I'm not starting Adam Humphries. And I'm not starting Delaney Walker. Moving on to the next matchup, I didn't do the Browns of that piece. So we'll cover the Browns as well. Players that you can fire up with confidence: Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb. 8 of his 10 starts, he had 15 plus total touches, and he's only going to have more in this game, especially if they have a positive game script. Odell Beckham Jr. had 8 games with double-digit targets, and I'm just confident that he's going to have a good game as well. Jarvis Landry played the 8th most snaps among NFL receivers in 2018, so he's going to have the opportunity to get some work. And of these guys, Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and David Njoku, I'm starting all of them. The Titans defense is good, but I just feel like there's going to be so many quality plays coming out of Freddie Kitchens and this Cleveland Browns team that I'm excited to see the hype train. Moving on to the next game, Rams-Panthers. The Panthers are the Panthers are not favored to win. They are +3. The total over-under of 50.5. And we're going to go into some start 'em sit-ems. So, of the Rams, players that I am firing up with absolute confidence: Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp. So, basically, I am firing up their primary running back. I'm not firing up Darrell Henderson. Sit him. I am also sitting Gerald Everett, their tight end. But their entire wide receiving core I'm starting, their quarterback I'm starting, and their running back I'm starting. They have such a good offense. that I'm really excited to see how it blossoms this year with Kupp back and healthy. We got the Carolina Panthers on the other side of the ball. So players that I'm firing up with confidence: Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, and DJ Moore. I really like those guys. I'm starting all of them. If I had Curtis Samuel in a deeper 12-team or 14-team PPR league, I would probably start him as well. But in a 10-team or a 12-team that's a little bit more shallow, you probably have a better option as a second wide receiver. All right, Colts Chargers. Chargers are favored to win by 6.5 points. I like this line a lot, especially against Jacoby Brissett in LA. And the total point over and under is 44.5. Of course, the game became a lot less interesting when Andrew Luck decided he was going to retire, but we'll see how it goes. Players that I am starting this week for the Indianapolis Colts: Marlon Mack and T.Y. Hilton. Those are the two primary options that I'm going to start. If you are in a 2 tight end or a tight end premium league, I would definitely consider starting Jack Doyle. He saw 108 targets in 2017 with Jacoby Brissett as his quarterback. The only tough part is he still has Ebron there. He's fighting for the red zone targets. But quarterbacks that are under pressure, especially rookie or younger quarterbacks, tend to lean on the tight ends more than most. So in a PPR league that's pretty deep or a tight end premium league, you could definitely fire up Jack Doyle as well. On the Chargers side of the ball, this is going to be pretty interesting. There's no Melvin Gordon, and that was kind of how we had expected it to be. But players that I'm firing up with confidence: Phillip Rivers, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, and Mike Williams. So I'm pretty much starting the entire Chargers offense. The only player that I'm not really starting this week is Justin Jackson, because I want to see how the splits of carries shake out between Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson. Although Justin Jackson did have 3 double-digit fantasy production games in the last 5 of 2018. And then Austin Eckler additionally saw at least 17 touches in 3 starts without Melvin Gordon. So I really like Eckler in this matchup. I think he's going to catch 5 to 7 passes, and if he can get 15 to 17 touches on top of that, it's going to be a really good game for him. Moving on, we've got the Seahawks and the Bengals. The Seahawks are at home in Seattle and are favored to win by 9.5. The total over and under is 44. And of the players that I'm starting for the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm starting Joe Mixon and I'm starting Tyler Boyd. Now, there's one interesting one, which is Tyler Eifert. If you are in dire straits with the tight end position and you got him late round, while he's healthy, this man has definitely the potential to score 2 touchdowns in this game. I wasn't expecting to see him healthy because he's always had problems staying on the field, but he might be somebody to start up if you are in the deeper side of a tight end or something that runs like 2 tight end sets or a tight end premium league for touchdowns. It's not a bad matchup for him, but I think that the Bengals are going to get crushed in this game. So it's going to be something where they're forced to throw, and Dalton's going to be out there just chucking it a ton of the time because of that. So it'll be interesting. And then of the Seahawks players that I'm starting and firing up with confidence, Russell Wilson, Chris Carson, Tyler Lockett are the primary 3 that I'm starting. I don't want to start Rashad Penny. I don't think that he's done very well, and I think that Chris Carson's going to get a ton of the work, and we're really going to see how this backfield is going into 2019. Super stoked about the matchup that Carson has with the Bengals. There's a couple of spots where I'm playing him in my RB2 spot over a guy like Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, those guys from yesterday night's game, because I think that Chris Carson is just going to absolutely pop off. So we'll see on Sunday, but those are 3 guys that I really like to start this week. Moving on to the next game, we've got the Giants-Cowboys. The Cowboys are favored to win by 7. The total points over under is 45.5, and it's pretty much guaranteed that the Giants are going to lose this game. Zeke signing his new contract. It might even be a blowout. I'm not taking the spread on it because I've already bet my 2 games for the week, and I said that I would limit myself. But I definitely think that the Cowboys are going to come out. They're going to get the lead, and they're going to run the ball a ton with Zeke. So of the New York Giants players that I feel like I would be confident starting, I'm starting Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, and Evan Engram. So basically the primary receiving options for Eli, and then, of course, the workhorse himself, bust down Saquonda. So those are the three guys that I'm starting in the Giants offense. But of the Dallas Cowboys that I'm starting, Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup are the players that I really, really like to start this week. I think that Gallup's had a great preseason. He looks really good. The quality of targets has been really good from Dak, and I think that this is going to be a slaughter. So I feel confident starting most of those guys up. I'm not starting Jason Witten. I'm not starting Tony Pollard because Zeke is obviously back there. But of that Cowboys offense, those are the guys that I'm starting. Moving on to the next game, we have the 49ers and the Buccaneers. This one was kind of interesting because the line is actually a pick'em, and the total over-under is at 50. So Vegas says, yeah, not sure which team's going to win, one of the two, but it's going to be a shootout. So of the players that are on these teams that you want to fire up, sneaky start this week would be Matt Breida. I have a feeling that he's going to do some work out of the backfield. Really like Tevin Coleman against the Tampa Bay defense as well. Their defense isn't good. They allow a ton of rushing yards, and I think that starting both of the two of those guys is going to be pretty safe. And then the other guy that I'm firing up with confidence for the 49ers is George Kittle. So I don't know what the receiving core is going to shake out as. Everybody says, oh, it's Marquise Goodwin. Oh, it's Deebo Samuel. Oh, it's Dante Pettis. Oh, it's Jalen Hurd. I don't know. And I don't know where the target share is going to go, but I know that George Kittle is going to get his, and the two running backs for the 49ers are going to get theirs as well. So those are the three guys that I'm starting on that side of the ball. Of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, players that I'm starting week one, Jameis Winston. I think that Bruce Arians is going to just have this magic. He's going to sprinkle magic dust over Jameis's inconsistency, and if he can shave off one or two interceptions per game, he's going to have a hell of a year. Guys, I'm firing up with confidence. Jameis Winston, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and O.J. Howard. Moving on to the next game, we got the Lions and the Cardinals. The Cardinals are favored to lose. They are plus 2.5 at home against the Lions, and the total over-under is 47. So I'm not really sure which team I would pick here. This is kind of like a battle of the new teams, primarily with the Arizona Cardinals. New quarterback, couple new wide receivers, new head coach. It's going to be interesting. I'm not betting it at all because of that. But of the players that I'm starting in this game, I'm starting Kerryon Johnson, I'm starting Kenny Golladay, and I'm starting Marvin Jones. So primarily the two receiving options and the main running back. I'm not starting TJ Hawkinson. Rookie tight end is never a good idea to start, especially week one. And not starting CJ Anderson or any of the other cuffs potentially there as well. So Arizona Cardinals, players that I really like to start this week. Kyler Murray. I think that he's going to run all over these guys in his first competition. So pretty excited about that. Firing up Kyler Murray with confidence, start him. Firing up David Johnson with confidence, start him. And then I'm also going to fire up either Larry Fitzgerald or Christian Kirk. So either of the two of these guys is going to be fine, especially in PPR formats. I think that they're going to be throwing the ball a good chunk, and Kyler really has to prove that he deserves to be in this NFL. So I wouldn't be surprised if the two of those guys ended up with 10 to 13 fantasy points each in PPR formats. Feel pretty good about starting both those guys. Moving on, we have the fun AFC matchup between the Steelers and the Patriots. Patriots are favored to win by 5.5. So they're minus 5.5 in Foxborough, and the total over-under is 51. Of the players that I'm starting with confidence, I'm starting James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Vance McDonald for the Steelers. I really like Dante Moncrief this year, but I want to see what target share that he really commands in the first game or two before I start firing him up. If there are other options at wide receiver, I'm definitely playing them. But do like Dante Moncrief at all. However, I am sitting Ben Roethlisberger, I am sitting Dante Moncrief, and I'm sitting James Washington. So the players that I'm starting are James Conner, Juju, and Vance McDonald. On the Patriots side of the ball, start him, sit him, Tom Brady, fire him up. James White, especially in PPR formats, fire him up. He is one of 3 running backs to see multiple targets in every single game last year. So really love him as a PPR option. Sony Michel had 18 or more touches in 4 of the last 6 regular season games in 2018. Fire him up. Julian Edelman had 11 of 12 games in 2018 with double-digit points in PPR format. I'm firing him up as well. So of the players that I'm starting week 1, Tom Brady, James White, Sony Michel, and Julian Edelman. Moving on, we have the Texans and the Saints. The Saints are favored to win by 7. This is in New Orleans, in the Dome, and the total over-under is 53 points. So this is probably going to be one of the better matchups this week. Really excited to see Deshaun Watson with his new toys, especially Kenny Stills, run some deep routes against the Saints. But I'm just excited to see both of these teams play because this could be a potential Super Bowl matchup week 1. So of the players that I'm starting week 1 on the Texans, Deshaun Watson, Duke Johnson, and DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not starting Will Fuller. I'm not starting Kiki QT. And I'm definitely not starting Kenny Stills until I see how the number 2 wide receiver slot shakes out there. So that's who we're starting on that side of the ball. And then on the New Orleans Saints, players that we're starting 100%, Drew Brees, Kamara, and Michael Thomas. I would also say start Jared Cook. I'm not starting Latavius Murray this week. I'm not starting Traquan Smith, and I'm not starting Ted Ginn because we don't really know where the targets are going to go. But I just have a feeling that Jared Cook absolutely burns a couple of the defenders on the Texans for a big touchdown this game. I feel it coming. So those are the guys that I'm starting for the New Orleans Saints. And then start 'em, sit 'em for the Denver Broncos. We'll bring that one back probably on Sunday night. I'll release that one since that is actually the Monday night game. But other than that, if you guys have any questions or comments at all, make sure you leave them down below here and subscribe to the channel for future videos. And then don't forget, on 9/7 Saturday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're doing a live Twitch stream to go over stardom sit-ems, any roster questions you might have at twitch.tv/ChuckNasty. We'll see you there. Have a good day.